Good day, and thank you for tuning in to this new episode of the Microdose Diet. So my guest today is Melissa Blynn. So Melissa is a functional medicine and the founder of EpicLuv that is based in Dana Point, California, and the nice town compared to us in Canada. EpicLuv combines her passion for health, wellness, and nutrition with her desire to help others. Her work involves promoting mind and body transformation, and she is described as empowering people and inspiring change. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being with us today.
Thank you, Peggy, for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
That's fantastic. And my name, if you're new to the podcast, is Peggy Van de Plassche. This is the Microdose Diet podcast. I'm a former finance person. I now speak and write about the benefits of alternative medicines, such as microdosing psilocybin for professional and personal growth. So thank you again for being here with us today. And I know the people who are listening, usually they want us to get right in. So I'm gonna go with the first question. So I gave a bit of context, very high level context in the intro, but could you tell us more about your philosophy when it comes to personal development and transformation?
Yeah, so the first thing when I hear the word personal development and transformation, the first thing that comes up, especially with a lot of the women that I work with, is it's multifaceted. And I know you know this, there's so many different approaches how we can outsource transformation. And there's so many different ways that we can, do personal development. And what I think is my unique approach and my personal and professional opinion is really, number one, understanding where the client is at and making sure that they're educated in the modalities that they're seeking to search for, and give them tools and resources on educating them on whether it's personal development or transformation. Because I think this, everybody is at different stages in their personal development, and everybody is different in their transformation. And so I think the first and most important thing is doing a really good job of listening to the client and or patient of where are they at, because this is where we can get caught up and maybe, misalign them or misguide them. But sometimes we have to really realize that it might be very baby steps to start off with that personal development, so it doesn't overwhelm the client. And so for me, personal development and transformation is a journey, and it is a cycle. And I really emphasize that we are cyclical beings, especially the feminine, because I work predominantly with the feminine. And I always say, you're going to go through cycles and transitions. And this is what transformation is at different stages of our lives. And it's really just understanding where the client and or patient is in their certain cycle of their life, and what are they really seeking at that stage in life, because it's going to change. Whether we want to admit it or not, what someone is seeking professional development or transformation at 30, it's going to be different at 40, and it's going to be different in 50. But for me, it's really listening to where the client is at and helping to meet them where they are with tools, education, strategies to get them where they want to be at this cycle in their life.
Thank you. There are three things that really resonate with what you just said. The first is cycle, because we tend to look at, a linear progression, and it's not bad. And I think it's great for people who are, watching, listening, to understand that it's going to be sometimes, a feeling of one step up, one step backward.
Totally.
You are overall moving in the right direction, but sometimes you need to consolidate.
Yep.
So before moving up. So I really like you mentioned that. I love the fact you mentioned multiple tools, because to your point, sometimes we resonate with one, another time, or another client resonate with another tool, and things change.
Totally.
And it's so great to have, people like you, practitioners who understand, this need to adapt. Yes, you might have a protocol, but it needs also to be adjusted to the needs of your clientele. And the third thing that came to my mind when you were talking, because you put a lot of emphasis with taking the person where she's at. So I work with a lot of practitioners over the years, and that's thanks to them that I am where I am today. Like you need teachers, you need people helping you. I remember that person, great person, but I don't think she understood that she was going at the speed of light. And, there was a lot of spiritual bypassing. And at some point, I was just like, okay, that's not working for me. I'm still trying to digest. And you're already telling me, well, that was the best experience for you. And I'm like, I don't know. I just realized that it happened to me. So I just want to stop there and give you the space to answer to that. I thought what you said was very thought-provoking for me.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up the word spiritual bypass. Hi, my name's Melissa. Have we met? Like, I'm like, give me the love, give me the light, give me the joy. Like, let me positivity my way out of it. And the real radical, authentic truth is there is beauty in our mess, and there is beauty in our deeper, heavier emotions. There's magic there. And when we love and light and bypass those parts of ourselves, like, I love my mess. I love, those parts of myself, and understanding that, and really helping, women understand that those parts are a part of you. I always use this, and I think you'll find this very funny. So, did you ever see the movie Silver Linings Playbook with Bradley Cooper? This is a classic movie.
Quite a bit,
Older, right? So kind of what we're talking about at different stages, and then not spiritually bypassing, because a lot of personal development can be spiritually bypassing, like no judgment, shame. But I think we're missing the boat there in that aspect. And so in Silver Linings Playbook, Bradley Cooper's running, and I forgot the female's actress, and she's running, and she's chasing him. And he was like, stop chasing me. And she's like, I'm not chasing you. And they're like calling each other names. But in one moment, he stops and he turns around and he faces her and he says, well, I'm not the one that was a slut. And he literally called her a slut, and she stopped, placed her hands on her legs. She self-regulated with a big breath in that moment. And she looked up and she said, you're right. I was a slut, but I'm not anymore. But there is always going to be a part of me that is dirty and sexual. Can you forgive? Can you forgive those parts of yourself? And in that moment, it was like, whoa, like, this is where we get to be in our mess.
Yeah.
Love those parts.
It's funny because I realized, like, in the last few days, I always do a lot of work, and how much unexpressed anger is still in me. And I think that's the case for a lot of women. For two reasons. One, because, well, whether we want it or not, and it's not a call against men, that's not what I'm saying, but women tend to be put down a lot.
Yes.
That triggers a lot of anger. So that's one side of the equation. And the second side of the equation is that girls/women are not supposed to express their anger. So not only you create tremendous level of anger, but on top of that, you repress it.
Yes.
And that's something that I've had to work regularly, talking about cycle. Every time I go to a new level of consciousness, it comes back. Now when I see it, I'm like, okay, that means I'm one level up. So it's almost a good news, But at
Yeah.
that point, I'm like, okay, I would love to be tired. I would love to be, done with working on the anger. But what you mentioned with, loving the mess, it's also that part of me where I'm looking at that. Well, maybe my anger helped me in
Yeah.
many ways. It was a protective mechanism. It was a way to show me things were not right. Da 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 da. But
Yeah.
realizing it and expressing it healthily
Yes.
uh,
Bingo.
is
Yeah.
not always easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my personal and professional opinion, you know, when we as women can understand our emotional fabric and let go of the judgment, the shame, the oppression, and we allow to integrate that aspect of ourselves, really ultimately it's freedom. And again, very, and having reverence and respect of how we channel that anger and how we utilize that anger for creation and or like, hey, this is a tender place. Like I'm noticing like I need some space or this is where a boundary. And so really helping for me, that's a big part of the work that I do is one, helping women understand what is their relationship with, five of the strongest emotions: anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and conflict. And then really understanding how to work with that from a somatic perspective and
Yeah.
integrate that into the body.
Yeah.
And then lastly, like have rituals to be with those emotions when they surface and come so you can be your own container and
Mhm.
not bypass those.
Yes,
But it's
exactly.
really taking like the mental and the emotional and bringing it into integration into the body.
Yeah.
And it's an art, and it's an art. And I know we're going to get on this, but one of the beautiful things that I have a reverence and respect about psychedelic medicine, and we'll talk about this, is that, you know, the beautiful thing, whether it's through microdosing and or having a full on, journey, it allows us to access parts of those places that we've maybe never had the courage to go to.
Yeah. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And I have a lot of respect for that, a lot, because I deal with a lot of trauma. That's a lot of the stuff that I deal with, and from complex to oppressional to shock trauma,
Yeah. Hmm.
and it's multi-layered.
It is. It
It's
is.
multi-layered.
It's wonderful that you're combining mental, emotion, and body. I really believe in that. Very often there are pieces missing. I see a lot of work focusing on the mental.
Yeah,
And it's as if we have no body and no emotions. And,
yeah,
you cannot think your way out of trauma stuck in your body and emotion
yeah,
stuck in your body. And I think now more and more people start understanding that you need multiple tools and multiple approach,
yeah,
including the body, almost leading with the body
yeah,
versus just leading with, you know, up,
yeah,
neck up, so that's
100%.
so I say that, and I will actually ask you a next question, which is
Yeah.
really linked with belief and mental. So it's an interesting segue. So you started EpicLuv. You focus obviously your career on
Mhm.
personal development. What limiting belief did you have to overcome to do that? Because it's not necessarily easy to go in that direction.
I am the queen of breaking through limiting beliefs. And like I say this with humility and humbleness because, you know, I am a I am a byproduct of every form of trauma before I was 7 years old. And so I had complex, I had relational, I had oppressional, I had shock trauma. When we look at, some of the major traumas, I had experienced all of those before I was 7 years old.
Mm.
I was diagnosed with cancer at 18. I had cervical cancer. And when I was 21 years old, I was in a major car accident and put bedbound for almost a year because I had such severe spinal injuries. And so growing up, both of my parents were addicts. I was raised in an addict environment. I mean, if you look statistically, like the odds were stacked
Yeah,
against
yeah,
me. I
exactly.
mean, every layer, it was stacked. And so the first big breakthrough, of a limiting belief that I made the conscious decision to break through was when I was in an accident at 21. I had two choices. And the two choices were, now at this stage in my life, I was still eating poorly. I was, drinking a lot of alcohol. I was just abusing my body in every, I was freshly out of a marriage that was physically abusive and verbally abusive. And so when I got in this car accident, I was given two choices and two paths. And one of them was, we're going to give you pain medication, and you're going to need to be on pain medication for a long period of time because you have severe nerve damage. Or you can do different modalities like Reiki, acupuncture, yoga. And I never worked out. I never ate healthy. And so that was the first moment in my life where I was given a choice. My pain was like, okay, Melissa, I can choose the path of pain medication like my mother did because she was an addict to pain medication, or I can take radical responsibility, get really uncomfortable, and ask for help in these different modalities. And I did. And it was that moment in my life at 21, and I'm 42 now. So, 22 years ago, that began my own EpicLuv journey of really understanding what true self-love, mind, body, and soul was. And from that moment, leading all the way to creating EpicLuv, which I came fully out in 2020. When COVID hit, I left Las Vegas and I moved to California. But at that moment, my big tipping point and my last big limiting belief was my roommate in 2019 and my best friend, she was in a fatal motorcycle accident. She was killed suddenly. Oh. And so I developed shock trauma. So 5 years ago, I experienced another layer of shock trauma. And I did a lot of different processes. I did EMDR, and I had different modalities and practitioners work with me. Now, I had not experienced psychedelic medicine at this point. And so interesting enough, my roommate, she did a lot of psychedelic medicine and microdosed, and I was like, I'm never going to do that. My controlling part was like, no, mm-mm. But there was a fear inside of me that if I did do psychedelic medicine, that I would become an addict like my parents. Mm-hmm. That was my fear. Yeah. So my next big up leveling was I had to burn everything down that I had created in Las Vegas. I was doing a different company. I was still in the health and wellness industry. I had to literally and figuratively let it all go. I lived in the same house for 20 years, gone. I was like, got rid of everything I owned. And I moved and rented a room from a complete stranger. And I was like, I'm going all in EpicLuv because I believe this is where I'm meant to be. And I went all in 4 years ago, and my company is thriving on another level that I had never even imagined. And I went all in on myself. It was the time in my life that I fully emotionally, spiritually, financially, went all in on myself. And it was
impressive. Yeah. And, when you talk about that moment of power, when you are 21, that power you had to harness to make the right choice. It's the difficulty of a choice because it's not the choice society is pushing you towards.
Totally.
The healthcare system is like, okay, let me dole you pain medication. Oh, it happens that you have, history of addiction in your family. It doesn't matter. Let me push that. And that's why it's so important to really understand your body, really make the choices for yourself, and understand that no one's going to recommend you the best choice for yourself.
100%.
You have to make it, and maybe all your friends going to take the solution A, and maybe 90%, 95% of the world is taking solution A, which is why it's so difficult to take solution B. But in yourself that it is the right approach. And it feels, like I'm dealing more and more with the healthcare system now. And it feels like 9 times out of 10, you should not listen to the traditional system. You
Yeah.
know, it's just unbelievable. And I know the system in the US is as bad as the system in Canada and as apparently it became in France. And I'm horrified by what I've been listening. It's
Yeah.
just, and what I've been experiencing myself with doctor telling you, well, it's normal. You're above 40, you have digestion problem. It's normal. You're a woman above 40. And they just shut you down. They don't listen
Yep.
to you.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then you're the one who have to find, what's happening, the symptoms, try to find the diagnosis, talking with all your girlfriends, connecting the dots, da 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 da. I mean, that's all most of my friends now are able to find their diagnosis.
Yeah.
Which I find insane. So people who are listening, that the point is not to argue against the healthcare system. If tomorrow I have a cancer, for sure I'll be very happy to go there. But you cannot just listen to other people's opinion on what's best for
No.
you. That's what I'm trying.
No. And kind of backpedaling a little bit, it's like, a big thing that when I work with women, I'm like, you are your own medicine. Your body has an innate intelligence
Mhm.
and it knows. And our work together is really to help bring you back home into that innate knowing. Nature heals. Again, back to psychedelic medicine, like nature heals and connecting, women with non-traditional ways of bringing oneself back to wholeness, and helping them and leaning into curiosity, because kind of going back to, a lot of oppression, women are afraid to talk or like let it out, like, okay, like say no thank you to the doctor, like,
Yeah.
you are safe to have an opinion. You are safe to get a second opinion. You are safe to go, let me take a couple of days and digest this, like
I
you said, and really sit with like, does this work for me?
know.
Yeah, you can, ladies. And I know you know this, like a lot of women are disconnected from their voice because there's fear there. And they turn their power over to a broken
Exactly.
societal, they turn it over to a broken societal system. And it's
Exactly.
sad.
Yeah, and it's not helping anyone. One of the thing I'm very interested in understanding, so um what are the support your clients are looking the most? Do you have any, I don't know, success stories you want to share with us?
Yeah. So a lot of women that come to me. So I predominantly, as I mentioned, worked with women. My age range is I have, clients all the way from the early 20s all the way up into the mid 50s, give or take range wise. But predominantly the most women that tend to find me are kind of very similar to what come from, Peggy, of like the hustle culture,
Mhm.
working the corporate ladder, CEOs, CFOs, they're really high ranking in their company and or working for other companies, and they're living in a very linear, masculating, dominating world, and that's how they're living their life, and they're very disembodied. And what I mean by disembodied is they're usually attracting dysfunctional relationships. They're not getting the relationships or intimacy that they're craving. They are really struggling with coping strategies, i.e. alcohol, i.e. shopping, or food. Food is a big one.
Yes.
Food is a big one. I have quite a few clients that, had either eating disorders and or addictions that come to me. And so it's really these women that have maybe gotten somewhere from society's success,
I know.
and they're empty
Yeah.
and they're exhausted and they're anxious and they're high functioning anxious,
Mhm.
and they're like, what's happening? Like this never happened before. And like, I'm waking up and I'm pacing the house and like I'm like, and it's like, oh, haha, all the ways of living the last 10, 15 years, your body's going, hey,
Exactly.
can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. And so, I have a success story that I want to share. I have a woman, she's in Chicago. She's in her early 40s, and she's a successful entrepreneur, and she has her own real estate company. And she heard me on a podcast a year ago, and she reached out and she's like, I know someday I'm going to work with you. And I'm like, okay. And so we started working together almost a year ago.
Okay.
And here was this woman who was, on paper, she's stunning. She's successful financially. She comes from a very high financial background from family. And so on paper, everything is great.
Yeah.
Everything is great. And you look at her and she's stunning and highly was disembodied from her feminine body, had a lot of abandonment wounding. And so her nervous system was constantly chasing after men who only reinforced the abandonment wound, and like literally had zero to any awareness of how to understand why she had the emotions, regulating her emotions, and creating a foundation of feminine embodiment rituals and making her business second and putting her emotional body first. And she's been with me for a year, and she's got this great relationship that they started dating last September, meeting the family, like, and she's just speaking up and she's getting ready to transition into a career that she's been wanting to her whole life. And she's like, she's literally burning down this whole empire that she created. And she's like, it's just not me anymore.
Exactly.
And so getting to see that in her is just, it lights me up. And it's like, this is my why.
Yeah, that's fabulous, And I know for people who are listening, it's very scary because people are listening and they're like, oh my God, are you telling me that if tomorrow I start embodying my emotions and healing my wounds, I'm going to destroy my life and do something else? And that's not what we're saying. That's absolutely not what we're saying. I think it's the unauthentic part of your life. Won't be able to stand, the test of time as you become more and more the real you. But nonetheless, it's difficult because we're just like, okay, who's that real me? And does it mean I'm going to have now to let go of my big house, my husband, all of these that are check. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that transformation is scary for many reasons.
For sure.
Yeah. So I have a last question for you. You're alluding to psychedelics already, microdosing, in the beginning of a talk. So what are your thoughts on psychedelics and microdosing psilocybin?
Oh, I have a love for this medicine. I have a love so much it's tattooed on my arm. Like I literally have such a love for this medicine. So I think it's important to give some context a little bit about, in regards to my personal experience with, psilocybin and microdosing. So as I mentioned in 2019, when my roommate was killed in a motorcycle accident, I had different modalities to heal with different trauma. And then in 2020, I participated in what was called Fit for Service. It is a mastermind with Aubrey Marcus, and I joined Fit for Service. And it was a really unbelievable experience, but there was a really big psychedelic community in there. Okay. And so I started getting educated and curious and really learning. Like I started to get curious. And then it wasn't until March of 2021 that I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to experience psychedelic medicine. And I really did. I went in with intention. I never sat with big groups. Like I didn't go into a jungle. Like I really vetted my, who I sat with. But prior to even doing a journey, I did start to microdose, because what I started to realize is that as I stopped drinking alcohol, or especially in relationships in large quantities of it, I had a lot of my nervous system had a lot of anxiety, social anxiety, and I had anxiety around men. And that was because I was suppressing my feelings and emotions. And so they perceived as a threat. And so I started microdosing for a good 6 months to a year. Then I actually sat with medicine. And so I worked with it very intentionally in the microdosing, and it really made a significant difference. And then when I made the decision to sit, with psilocybin. I made the decision to sit with Bufo, which is 5-MeDO. And then I also sat with MDMA. And so the last 4 years, I've sat, very intentionally with all 3 of those medicines in different periods and pockets. And then it was last year, I knew intuitively, it was like, okay, this is my up level. And so I actually decided to go and work with Numinous. I'm not sure if you know Numinous. Numinous is a Canada-based company that partnered with MAPS to do psychedelic assisted therapy training.
Oh, yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah. And so last year I said, you know what? I'm ready. This is a part of the work that I want to offer to women and to the world. And so I enrolled last year and I worked with Numinous to do psychedelic assisted therapy. And everything that I had done in my career led me to this moment. So I also have somatic therapy background. And so it was interesting when I did my course with Numinous. A lot of it was, the language was around internal family systems. It was around somatic therapy. It was around titrating the nervous system. So it was almost as if the last 4 years, my soul through somatic therapy and other modalities, it was like, no, now you're ready. Like now you understand the language, you know how to serve medicine. And it was just like a light bulb. And so I really feel so humble and grateful that I can educate and be a resource to women and men, about this profound, because, if I knew what I know now, truthfully, if I knew what I know now, like 20 years ago, I would have done this 20 years ago, but I didn't know. And that's okay.
I always say the same. Had I known 20 years ago,
yeah,
I would have done it, like it's probably the most impactful thing,
Huge.
that, but you know what, I'm looking at that, I'm like, but first, better late than never. But it's also, I think, younger generation will have the opportunity, to do it earlier, and be more conscious. So are you now practicing? Yes, you are offering the service. That's amazing. So in California, I know the stigmas are high still in North America, but I think in California it's a bit more forward-looking type of culture.
Absolutely.
You see people really embracing this time. Yes, okay, that's fine.
Absolutely. And I lived in Oregon for part of last year. I lived in Oregon for about 8-9 months where psilocybin, was legal and so forth. And so in California, it is becoming, obviously, there's a lot more openness. And California is on the roster for MDMA and psilocybin to become legal, as you know. And so, I mean, we're at such a beautiful time, as you know, with, what you offer with the microdose diet. Like, I feel like we are in this beautiful window to provide such relief of tools and strategies. And I'm not here to negate talk therapy. Like, hello, 20, plus years, I've had a lot of talk therapy in my background, and medicine is so unique and beautiful. And I'm just grateful to be a part of that. I'm just grateful to be a part of this time where it's coming online, and it's coming now, and it's becoming more accepted, because mental health is a problem.
Exactly.
And it breaks my heart when I see people in such pain and suffering. And yes, it's their journey, but it's like, God, there's just so much magic, as you know, on the other side. And it's kind of going back to earlier. It is a cycle. It is transitions. Like, I was not ready to sit with any medicine until 5 years ago. And so it's and it's creating safety and trust with the practitioner and educating them. Like, you do such a great job with educating women, and all of the things in your book that's coming out. Like, this is so important, is educating, because we need to educate of how this really works.
Well, so after people can make the right decisions, it's back to the conversation we had earlier. I think it's not about, I'm not saying psychedelics, microdosing or anything is the right solution for everyone all the time. It's important people understand what we're talking about and that they make their own choices. I think but having at least the choices before the options was not available, so you could not take the decision. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. We have like 3 minutes left, which I think is probably 2 minutes now, but do you have any parting thoughts you would like to impart the audience with? They can find you, I guess, on EpicLuv. I'll put the information, of course. Anything you want to talk about, your socials, your website, what you're offering?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is I think it's important. When I created EpicLuv represents empowering people and inspiring change to love themselves, like just genuinely love themselves. And I'm here as a resource. And so for anyone that's listening, like send me an email, message me on social media at EpicLuv. Like, let's have a 15-30 minute conversation. And if I'm not a resource of where you are in your cycle or your transition, like I have great resources to connect and just educate people and guide them in that direction. So I'm really here as just an open door of any and all questions to contact me and be of highest service in any way that I can. And I'm just grateful for you, Peggy, and the work that you were doing and educating. And, I know you and I met through Lisa, who was my money coach, and having this conversation. And, I think the biggest thing is like women, especially, like we heal in sisterhood and we heal, we heal together. And when we can really have reverence and respect for each other's journey and care and just genuine compassion, it's a game changer. So I'm really grateful for you, and thank you for having me.
Well, I am very grateful for taking the time and, sharing your insights with the audience, with myself. And thank you back at you. Thank you for the work, because, the more people have the ability to work with practitioners like you, the better place the world will become. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. And I'm really looking forward to staying in touch. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Bye-bye.
Bye.